Hello. So I'm just gonna walk you through my new device called Songbird. So this device has three parts in it. The first is this bird flocking simulation. The second is and each bird in the simulation has a bird brain, which is the other part, and a bird vocal organ called a syrinx, and that's the third part. So basically, there's different birds in the simulation, and each one can produce sound using their modeled brain and modeled vocal organs. And the point of having this flocking algorithm is to basically be able to modulate different parameters depending on like where the birds are, what angle they're flying at, or whatever. Just as a demonstration, here's a parameter for pitch right here. And if I open this modulation menu, we have X, Y, brain, angle, speed, etc. And these all refer to that each bird's, say, X position or Y position or angle. And so that's the main gist of the device. So now I'll just go through the device left to right and explain how each part works and the parameters. So on the far left, we just have these parameters that control the simulation. We can slow it down. This is the frame rate, the rate, and we can speed it up and slow it down. Align is how much the birds will align their directions with each other. So if it's up really high, you see they're all really flying the same direction. And if I do it down pretty low, they're all not likely to align with each other. Group is how strong the grouping factor is. So if I turn it all the way up, they'll all come and become one group, one bird. And if I turn it down, they're unlikely to be grouping. And separate says how much space or kind of the force of separation. So if that force is low, they're also likely to group or separate. And balancing these three will get different dynamics. Sight is the radius. So I'll turn on this ranges right now so we can see this is like the radius that each bird can see in. So if sight is low, they can't see very far. And if sight's high, they can see far. And basically, the birds in their sight get applied to this align, group, and separate parameters. So sight, if they don't see them, then they won't align or group or separate. So sight changes that. I'll turn that off. And then force is just like the force that's applied for the different movements, the amount of force applied. Okay, cool. So that's how you control the simulation. And then here, obviously, the simulation of the flocking is displayed. At the top of this, we can change the number of birds. We can, like I said, we can click this ranges to see where they can, to visualize what they can see. This doesn't affect anything in the sound or anything. It's just for you. This randomize button randomizes their position and velocities and some other things about them. Like each have like a random spray value you can use as modulation. So this also randomizes that. And then this save disk next to that, it saves basically the current state. So it saves where the positions and velocities and everything. And so if I press save now, then if I recalled this as a preset or when I reopen my live set, it will recall those exact last positions that were saved. Otherwise, they're random. And lock, if lock is on, then you see they all froze. Lock says it won't make sound, and it will lock to the transport. So it won't make sound or do the simulation unless Live's transport's running. So I'm going to run it now. I'm running it, and I stop it. So yeah, it's locked to it, and I'll just keep it unlocked. Okay, so that's how this whole section works. Now this whole section to the right is all about how they make sound. I've had the sound down. Maybe I should turn it up. So they're all chirping around. Okay, so maybe I'll keep it with one bird so it's more clear with the sound. Um, there's one bird. It's in the corner right now. Okay, so this first section called syllable is all about. So basically, with the bird song, one syllable is a syllable or a word, I guess, more like in the song. So the syllable deals with that one word, which is like an envelope of sound, kind of, according to the model. So um, so syllable deals with like the types of words, I guess, the bird says. Let me turn off this panning so it's centered. Okay. So, okay. So right now the top one is revert, and what revert says is, let me turn off the phrases too. So right now the bird's just repeating one syllable, the same syllable over and over. And what revert says is that after it finishes the syllable, that that its brain and vocal cords will kind of reset so that the syllable kind of sounds the same each time. And it kind of gives it a more pronounced envelope. But if I turn revert off, it won't reset the brain and the vocal organs. So it might be right now very still. Yeah, it's just like a tone now. But if it changed the syllable type, yeah, let's see it. With revert on, so I'm going through different types of syllables. And you hear they have like a strong envelope, and with revert off, it doesn't reset them. Now, it won't always be just like a long tone with revert off, especially if you have phrases on, but we'll get to that later. But just, yeah, to give you an idea. Okay, now, so below revert, we can see this type has like 3 things with a drop-down menu, and you can see that kind of same format is repeated here and here and here and here and here and here. And so this indicates that this parameter can be modulated. And so all these parameters can be modulated, and they all follow the same format. The format goes like this. This is the name of the parameter, type, and then the first thing underneath that is the type, is the modulation it can receive. So right now it's not being modulated, it's set to none. But you could choose a different one, and I'll probably exemplify that more with another. Okay, I'll just exemplify that now with pitch, because it's easier to hear. So we're going to skip over here to pitch. So right here is pitch. Underneath, we have the modulation source. And then below that to the left, you have the center value. So let me turn the sound up, and I'll turn this. So this is the center value. And then let's give it some modulation. So I'll just modulate the pitch based on the X value. So that's the X position of the bird, which is kind of to the left right now. And then below and to the right, this parameter here is the amount of modulation. So now let's add some more birds so we can hear that. So the more, let's just do 2 birds. So the more to the right now, the higher the pitch is going to be, and the more to the left, the lower the pitch is going to be. So just to reiterate that, under each modulated parameter, like pitch, first we have the modulation source. Right now I have it to the X position. To the bottom left is the center value, which is just like the value of the parameter, basically. And then to the right of that is the amount of modulation we apply. And you can invert it too. So this is bipolar. Okay, so yeah, let's add some more birds again. And let me switch X to Y now. So now the Y position affects the pitch. Okay, and I'll turn it back to none. Okay, I hope that was all clear. Anyway, so now we understand the format of these. I can go back over here to type. So here's the type parameter. This just says the type of syllable the bird will sing. So like I said, I'll just move this one bottom left value to change the value. So here's another type of syllable. So those are different types of syllables it can sing with this current model. Okay, so length is how long a syllable is. So if it's long, it'll be more held out. And short. Like I said, right now it's just repeating the syllable as soon as it finishes it. And then dissipate is how quickly the energy dissipates from start of the syllable. So you can see it's almost like having a short decay. Yeah, with a high dissipation like that, it's just silent. Okay, so that's the section, syllable. Now the brain section. So the brain, what it does is control the vocal organs. So the brain also controls like how syllables sound and are made. So here the first parameter is the speed of the brain. And if at 50%, halfway, 0.5, it's just the normal speed in the model. If I start to turn it up, it'll do the envelope faster. And with certain, with this type of syllable, let's do this type. So here's a syllable, and if I turn the speed up, it'll start getting more and more trilly. And then at a certain point, it'll start aliasing and sound kind of like downsampled or something. Okay, and then if it goes lower, the brain will go slower, and it won't even be able to finish the syllable even. Unless you turn the length of the syllable longer to keep up with the brain slowness. There's just different ways you can handle that. Okay, and then below that is this beta and rho parameters, and these are two constants in the brain algorithm, in the brain model, and just changing these will kind of change the envelopes. So this will kind of change the syllables, the sound of the syllables a bit. And they start out at 20 beta and 6 rho. These are like the correct constants to do the model, but you can mess with them a bit to get like a different. So yeah, you can mess with these things to get kind of like different sounding bird, basically. Okay, so that's how syllable and brain work. Now we'll get into phrases. So let me center these things. Okay, so phrases, what is a function that basically strings together different syllables to make like a little bird song or sentence. And then so how it works is it strings like a number of syllables together, and then there's like an interval between them. So I'll skip the loop parameter for a second so we can do the more obvious stuff. So here's number of syllables. So that's just the number of syllables in a phrase. So if I turn it all the way down, it's just one syllable each phrase. And if I turn it up, it's more syllables for a phrase. And then the interval below that is the interval. So let's go back to a low amount of syllables. And if I turn the interval up, now it's a longer interval or silence between each syllable, each phrase. Now if I turn the interval down, it will be a shorter one. And then if I turn the interval up higher and then the number of syllables up higher, as you can hear now, there's like more syllables per phrase and then like a long interval and then an interval between them. And intervals can be, right now it's just in like samples or a free time, but you can press the sync button to make them beat synced, tempo synced intervals. Okay, so what loop does up here is basically if loop's on, like, okay, right now when a phrase ends, there's just silence until the next interval, right? But if loop's on, it will keep repeating the phrase until the interval ends and a new sentence is made. So loop basically gets rid of the interval silences and just has it loop the phrase until the next one is made. So if I turn the number of syllables down, it's just like looping a one syllable right now. Okay, so, and then finally, let's turn loop off. And then finally, there's type spread down here. And so if type spread was all the way down, then the only syllable in every phrase would just be whatever we set this type value to over here. So as you can hear now, it's just the same syllable repeated over and over again. And then type spread basically spreads out the possible syllables that can be sung from this central type value. So if I spread it up back, now it can sing more types of syllables. Okay, hope that was clear. So that's how phrases works. And now this last section is easier to understand. It's just some effects. So we have pitch. At 100% pitch, it is actually the original pitch of the model, and then we can just basically down tune from there. And if we turn the length higher, we have these longer. Let's add more. And then, like I said, let's add some modulation. Let's just do a static spread. And that just spreads each bird's pitch based on their index. Maybe I should just go through them all right now. So spread, the different modulation sources. So spread just does a static spreading. So this value never changes. It's just based on the bird's index from 0 to 7 right now. Okay. X, like we solved before, is the X position. Y is the Y position. Brain is like controlled by the actual brain envelope, which already is kind of controlling the pitch, so this works better on other parameters usually. Angle is the angle they're flying. Speed is how fast they're flying. So if I turn their speed up. Proximity is how close they are to their closest neighbor. Density is how packed their group is. Like how close they are to like their neighbors, like how dense their group, a cluster of birds is. Sight is how many birds are in their sight. So we can see that better with the ranges. And if we turn sight really low, that affects that. And then spray is another static value like spread, but it's a random value. Instead of like an evenly spread value, spray is just a random value. Okay. So now I guess I'll just keep them like this. Okay, and then next to that we have a wavefold. To get it a bit more weird. And then below this we have a oscillator. Okay, so this oscillator can be applied as FM or AM. So right now it's applied as and AM. So right now it's just FM, and I'll turn it up. And below that we have the frequency. Which I can modulate. And then, yeah, you can apply it as AM too. Or both. Okay, and then next to this we have panning, which often sounds good with just X modulation. Okay, and then we have gain. It's kind of obvious. And then we have a simple reverb below that. Okay, and that wraps it up. I hope you enjoy it.